You're listening to Under the Shell Podcast, the best in America.
Welcome to Under the Shell, presented by Testudo Times. I'm Brendan Weissel.
Sam Jane.
Michael Howes.
Big Mike.
Big Mike. Bring it back.
Let's get into the show.
Two weeks in a row.
This is the first ever episode of Under the Shell where I was not present at the interview, so a little bit sad there, but
Brendan's back from Stanford, so he has a great looking tan. We're not a visual podcast, but you could see. But yeah, Brendan was not on, but Ryan Howerton was, 4-star offensive lineman recruit for Maryland football. You better hope he's good, because the current state of Maryland football is not. Obviously a tough loss against Northwestern. We talked with Ryan about that, among other things. So give it a listen.
Our next guest is a 6'4", 295-pound, 4-star offensive tackle commit to the University of Maryland. If you've been on Twitter, you've probably seen him around commenting and posting Terp stuff. He is the Mountain Ryan Howerton. Ryan, welcome on to the show. We're so happy to have you on.
Appreciate you guys for having me, man. I seen the list of guys you had to add on to it.
I guess the first question has to be, how did you get the nickname The Mountain?
Every time, man. It was during COVID, and we was all there from my high school. My freshman year was COVID, so when we was first doing the first team workouts, we was all on Zoom meetings. So we would be working out, and one day I just had my phone like real close to my face. Like we was doing push-ups, and it was like real close. Like you was in my shirt while I was doing the push-ups. So he was like, head coach was like, dang, he's taking up the whole screen. Our O-line coach just blurted out like, yeah, he's like a mountain on the screen. And it just never left.
And that was your coaches at Pilati?
Yeah.
So kind of taking it back to Pilati, taking it before high school in general, kind of tell us about your football journey. When did you start? When did you realize that you're really good? Tell us your football story.
I've been watching football my whole life. Some of my earliest memories was random, but it was washing a car, and my dad was throwing me a football for the first time. I remember catching it with my whole body, praying it didn't fall. And I've just been a football fan ever since. I remember I was, I think, 8 or 9 years old when I first wanted to start playing, because in our elementary school, they passed out a paper that was just like join the Westphalia Gators. So my first ever team I played for. And the jerseys was just too sweet to pass up on. I was begging my dad. He said no for the first time, and I was just heartbroken. And then after, I think, maybe a year, he finally let me join a team. Played for two or three youth teams during my youth years. Westphalia Gators, Marble Mustangs. And there was a Marble Mustangs where the O-line coach from Pilati, Coach Keith, he kind of found me, and he was like, yeah, if you come to Pilati, I can turn him into a D1 athlete. So, shoot, apparently that was all the reinforcement we needed to go there. Went to Pilati, started freshman year. Apparently, freshman year, fun fact, I had a Maryland offer my freshman year that I didn't know about until my junior year. So it kind of made me not like Maryland for a little bit, because I was like seeing all these freshman guys, and I was like, they're getting bags before me. I'm doing more than, but apparently I had it the whole time. So
how'd that happen?
Yeah, just Coach Brooks, Elijah Brooks, he works with VTech now. He just came in one day and he was like, yeah, man, we're checking up on you. You know you have an offer, right? And I was like, what? I almost resent y'all for not giving me this offer this long, man. He was like, yeah, you have an offer from this, man. You never knew? And, well, yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
What about, you're going through the process, and obviously you kind of were, you kind of came down to what, Pitt? Was Vatek in there, and then Maryland? What were the top three?
Top three was Maryland, Pittsburgh, and West Virginia.
West Virginia, okay. Yeah, my bad. So then you kind of you choose Maryland, right? But what about the school was it? Was it kind of the idea of, instant playing time because of, the O-line and kind of the graduation? Was it, the style of offense? Like, what was the number one deciding factor at UMD?
To be honest, it was really Coach Locks. I got to have a little one-on-one time with him. He was talking with me, and he was just talking about his vision. He was talking about his vision of like moving black coaches and black people forward. And he was talking to me about how he changed the whole program around. And he was just telling me everything. And when he was saying that, I was like, I could really relate to this. Like, he grew up the way I grew up. He had the same experiences I had. So once he was talking to me about that, it just felt like I was at home while I was at home. So it was too much to pass up on.
How important was it for you to have a black coach as your head coach? Was that something where, that was one on your rankings? Because obviously the coach disparity from Caucasian men to African American men, there's obviously a big difference between players. So how much of a benefit is that, and how much do you guys talk about that, the importance of, hey, like, I'm playing for someone who kind of knows a little more where I'm coming from and things like that?
To be honest, it wasn't as important for me. I was more focused on what coach has the same vision I have, which is
right,
making me into the best person possible, not just seeing me as a unit or somebody I can throw on the field to get more money. Like, it was just about seeing who really wanted me for me, and the way Coach Locke. And then it was just all about the way Coach Locke was speaking to me. And yeah, it wasn't the biggest factor, but the relatability did obviously come in when he was talking to me about what he saw from me. So
what were some of those other? Go on, sorry.
No, I would say it wasn't the biggest factor, but
what are some of those other factors that kind of played a part in you choosing Maryland?
The offensive line coach, Coach Braswell, he holds weight in the offensive line community. I know that's a real small community. Not a lot of people know about that community, but he holds weight in that offensive line community. When he was talking to me about the different places he's coached at and the different teams he's coached with. And I was talking on my official visit to DJ Glaze and Spencer Anderson. He came back to one of the games and he was talking to me. He was like, yeah, when I went to practice and told about Coach Brad, like, they jumped up, they see it a little bit, like they knew what he was capable of. So that also played a factor too. That was probably one of the biggest factors for me.
Kind of run us through your official visit a little bit. You told us you had that one-on-one talk, Coach Locke and all that, but what were some of the other stuff, that they had you do? Where did they take you around? Obviously they probably took you to the stadium. They did the photo shoot and all that. What were some of the stuff that you guys did?
Personally, when we got there, we had Coach Preston to walk with us. Kind of guide us around. And I feel like, honestly, that was one of the biggest factors of me committing to, when the way he was talking to me too. But yeah, they had us walking around, going around the hotel, talking with us, feeding us like every other official visit. But when it came down to eating as like an entire group, we actually got to sit with Coach Locke. So we was talking with a one-on-one. That kind of what I was going into the commitment when I was talking about that. We was sitting with him one-on-one with his wife at the dinner table, just talking. And he FaceTimed, what's his name? That you remember Channing Crowder? Channing Crowder, yeah. Yeah, he FaceTimed Channing Crowder right at the dinner table so we could talk to him.
So funny.
Just literally, same thing he told me. He was like, "This is a big youngin." Like, he had us laughing already, but yeah, he was. He FaceTimed at the table. Like, yeah, our official visit was a little different from everybody else's. We had like a little special. We was a little special. So,
well, what was the conversation with Channing Crowder? Because man, I see his podcast. He's funny as shit.
He FaceTimed. Well, Coach Locke's FaceTimed him just to talk to him. I don't remember who brought it up, but he was like, I just remember we was talking about like what we watched for fun, and we was just like, yeah, we all watched the what was it called? One Day Was All Together. Just I Am Athlete. We was all talking. Yeah, we was talking about. Yeah, we all watch I Am Athlete. He was like, oh, y'all watch I Am Athlete? I'll call Channing right now. Called him, and the first thing Channing said was, "What's up, you fat?" I can't say the rest on this podcast, but yeah, on the second he FaceTime, he was hilarious. He called me. He was like, "How tall you was, big young?" He was like, "I was like, yeah, 6'5". He was like, "Oh yeah, like you need him real bad." Like, he was just good vibes from the moment he got on the phone. So that was a little crazy. It was kind of surreal.
That's hilarious. So I gotta ask, like, obviously football is the number one plan, but when you're kind of picking a college first of all, what are you interested outside of football, like off the field in terms of like academics and other things? And then how much of a factor does that play at all? Or are you kind of just like zeroed in on, hey, like obviously the NFL is the goal, but like some guys are locked in completely on that versus others, I think maybe are more committed to the idea of like, hey, I want a backup plan. I need to get a degree, that type of joint.
Yeah, well, I plan on majoring in journalism. I want to do sports journalism. I want to be exactly, man. That's one of the reasons I came on. But I want to
Yes,
get into sports
sir.
journalism. That's really gonna be my major. And yeah, I'm kind of zeroed in on the NFL, but I'm also like realistic. So I know like even if you make it to the NFL, it's about what's after the NFL. Even if you don't make it to the NFL, it's about being around the NFL because I love football that much. So yeah, it's definitely something that's in my head to be like, okay, let's get something rolling, get something that you really want to be in for the rest of your life. And when I've realized that it actually was football, I was like, yeah, I want to be around this. So I chose sports journalism.
Kind of getting back to your recruiting visits a little bit. How did Maryland kind of compare to other visits that you took? And is there like a craziest or funniest recruiting story that you have? Something, maybe a funny pitch that they gave you, something that happened on a visit.
If I can be honest, the craziest visit was West Virginia. They rolled out the red card. They want to meet real bad.
What'd they do?
Like, I'm talking about, I walked in the room. They ordered like, how like you can get like trays of like chicken wings. Like we had like 3 of those in our room, full pizza. Like they ordered everything for us. We was just walking around. Got to ride on the head coach of West Virginia's boat. Like that was crazy. But I would say probably the funniest moment was when we were at Pittsburgh for our official visit, and we was all waiting to take pictures, and I was in the uniform, and Coach Powell, running back coach of Pittsburgh, he pulls his phone out and he goes, "Hey, just call him. Just tell me when to call him." And I look at his phone and it just says Michael Locksley, and I'm like, "Oh, he wants me to tell him I'm not going." So that was probably the funniest moment that we had. But
When you're going on these visits and now there's so much money in them, how much do they talk about like NIL? Obviously they talk about it a lot, I assume, but what are the conversations you have about NIL and how much of a difference did it make to you? And then once you answer that, how much do you know of a difference it makes to other players? Because we know a lot of players, like the high profile ones, that's sometimes the number one factor. Was that what it was for you too?
Nah, I would say NIL definitely wasn't the number one factor. I don't feel like I want to be a type of player that could just be like bought out or could just be bought to play for a team and not really worry about being developed. But of course, it was a topic because it's all the rave right now. So we talked about it for a little bit, and it was just talking to me about like knowing my own worth in a sense, saying like, yeah, we know your worth. We know we're not gonna try and put it like that, shortchanging basically. But yeah, it wasn't like my main focus at all when I was coming into recruiting because all the schools are gonna give you a number, but it's not set in stone until you go there. They could say anything and it's gone the next day. Like the quarterback that got promised $13 million and now he hit the transfer portal. So like it wasn't really like any focus of mine, but it was definitely something that they tried to bring up.
What about other guys that like you've tried to bring to Maryland? Have you had conversation with dudes where they're like, "Listen, man, like I just want a bag," you know what I mean? Because you see that in articles, kids talking.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say no names, but one of the guys was like, "Yo, do y'all get paid at Maryland?" And I was like, "That's all you care about, bro? Like honestly, that's all you care about?" He was like, "That's not all I care about, but you know how it goes. We all got problems and stuff." So I was like, "Of course we get paid at Maryland. Are you crazy?" No one. I don't know if we get paid at Maryland or not. I'm just saying that's what he commits. But yeah, that was really the one. There was only like 1 or 2 guys who was really worried about the numbers. Everybody else is worried about development.
I kind of wanted to touch on that a little bit. You talking with other recruits because we can see it on Twitter. You be calling out some kids sometimes, and then what is it like for you when you're talking to a player who might have already committed somewhere or who still hasn't? What are you trying to tell them to be like, hey, Maryland is the spot to be. Like, I'm committed here. I love this place. Like, this is the spot. What is your recruiting pitch?
Play for a coach with a vision. A lot of these coaches, will talk to you and they'll hype you up, and then you'll get there and you'll just be another kid on the depth chart, or you'll just be another number to them. Play for a coach who can see the best in you, and play for a coach who wants what's best for you. A lot of coaches will just tell you what you want to hear. Oh, yeah, you're an NFL superstar. You're guaranteed to make it. If you come with us, we guarantee you're a first-round pick, and you're going to get $46 million in NIL deals from Canes. We love it here. But honestly, it's like, play for a coach that's going to keep it honest with you, that's going to tell you what you need to hear, and it's going to get you better. And if you have an opportunity, he's not going to stop you from the opportunity. He's going to help you chase the opportunity.
And, kind of second part to that is I would say you're probably like the most passionate Maryland commit. Like all over Twitter, I see you doing the best is ahead hashtag. Like, why are you so passionate about Maryland? Because that really sets you apart from like a bunch of other high school players that I see. You're like consistently promoting and tweeting out stuff about the college you're going to be playing for.
I don't know. I don't know. So I feel like it's just a thing about me where it's like, if I do something, I'm going to do it all the way. Like at this point in my life, like if I'm going to commit to something, I'm going to commit to it all the way. It's like I committed to getting good grades in school. Now I'm a 4.0 kid. I committed to playing football, trying to go D1. Now I'm a D1 prospect. Like it's just something where it's just like, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. I'm not going to half do it and then complain when I get there. Oh, we don't have these guys, or we don't have those guys. Talk to those guys. Sometimes all you need is a little push, and you can have whatever you want in life. You just gotta know how to look for it. So I'm finding out how to look for it. I'm talking to the same guys around me.
I gotta ask. So the vision is clearly something that you've talked about, but I guess for Maryland fans, the vision isn't really rosy right now, especially after the loss to Northwestern, loss to Illinois. As a recruit, it's got to be frustrating to see, like, especially a team that, was hyped up to be, one of the best Maryland's had. Just take me through, what are your reactions been? What have other recruits' reactions been? Good. I mean, there has to be some negativity. It can't all just be rosy,
Yeah. My first reaction when it was the first couple of games was that we were starting slow, and then we would pick it up at the end. And then it was, I think, the game before Ohio State, we started fast, and then we slowed down at the end. And it was right after that game, I called Coach Braz, and I was like, yo, we're going into Ohio State. This is the recruit game. This is the game everybody's going to be at. I knew there was a couple of DMV guys who were going to be at Ohio State to watch this game. So I'm like, yo, if we can start the way we started last week, and we can finish the way we've been finishing all season, this is it. This is the year. I'm tweeting out Natty Boys. I'm tweeting out, when are we going to, after all the apologies over the national championship. And it's been a little heartbreaking. Especially since this teams I thought we would be able to beat. Even with Ohio State, I thought we was going to be able to beat them too, especially the way we started. But it's been a little heartbreaking. I've been talking to a couple guys who kind of fell off the boat a little bit, or who were maybe further on the boat. We were 5-0, and then they see the numbers kind of drop off, and they look at the other schools that's recruiting them, and they go, "Oh, maybe these guys have a better record, or maybe it's a better opportunity over here." So it's not obviously not all rosy, but I feel like the guys who are committed the same way I'm committed to being a better man, they can see through a loss. They can see through how a team plays. They can see through how a team first gets into a problem. They can find out how they react. They can find out how the coaching staff will react, and they can see what's really best for them.
Have you ever had like thoughts of like, or have you heard, you don't have to say name, but like thoughts about like a decommitment when stuff goes bad? Because it's got to be someone in the back of your mind, especially when you're kind of rising in the rankings and you have options available.
Man, can I be honest? I tweet so much about Maryland. These schools don't even want me no more, man. I'm looking like a coach. They don't even want me no more. All my other teammates talking about, oh yeah, I'm still getting recruited by this school, so and so. These guys been texting me all day. I had to shut down my recruitment. I ain't texted a coach since July 15th, the day I committed. So,
hey, you're locked. You got no other options.
I don't have to worry about that, but I'd have to go out my way to commit.
I got you. It's like, what's that saying? Burn the sails and or lock us in a room and don't let anybody else come out. You're locked in on Maryland. How you got options are limited.
It's too.
But Ryan, I gotta ask a couple rapid fire questions for you. Okay, so I'm just gonna bang you with like 10 questions. Just give me 1-word, 2-word answers. All right.
I got you.
All right. Where's the place on Maryland's campus you're most excited to see?
Coach Locke's office.
Oh, okay. What about what's the funniest tweet you ever have?
Telling Gabe to flip, my teammate.
How much of an offense are you? A run blocking O lineman, or you like pass blocking?
Oh, I love pass blocking.
What's one quarterback right now in the country, college or high school, that you'd want to play with the most? And you cannot say Talia.
Malik Washington. I need him to commit.
He tough. What's about one thing about an O lineman that you think people don't know that they should know more about?
We're the smartest players on the field.
Which is your favorite Maryland jersey?
I was begging for the yellow, so I got to say yellow.
Oh, the yellows. Which team are you most excited to play in the Big Ten?
Ohio State.
And which school, no matter how much money they offered you, how much playing time, whatever, would you just be like, nah, I can't see myself there. I can't go there?
Probably Ole Miss, because like, what am I gonna do in Mississippi? I'm not made for Mississippi.
Yeah, well, you saw how they did Michael Orr too, so that there's that as well. But thanks again, Ryan. We appreciate you coming on. Obviously, all the Maryland community likes following along, and you make guys like ours jobs easier because we kind of know where you're at. So we appreciate that, and have a good rest of your senior season, my man.
I appreciate y'all, man. Y'all just inspired me to keep striving to be a sports journalist, man. I want to be like y'all one day.
Thank you, Ryan. Hey, and we look forward to seeing you on the field next year.
That's right.
I appreciate it. I'll be back for another one when I'm on the field.
You heard Ryan talk about the future of the program, and guys, but we have to start at the present. There's not really many words I can say other than that just was probably one of the most disgusting performances I've seen from a Maryland team, not just football, but team, in a long time. First off, I want to start by apologizing to Mike.
Yeah, I was about to say, you want to go to the present. I want to go to the past real quick and go 4 weeks ago where I said they were a fraudulent 5-0 team heading into Columbus. And look where we are now, 0-3 cents. So
he kept receipts and he cashed them. There's nothing really to say other than you were right. Brendan, where do you even start with a loss like that? I mean, it tanks the whole season. And not only does it feel like it tanks the season, it kind of, I think, puts a darker cloud on the future of the program. A loss like that. You don't want to overreact, but when you lose back-to-back games against two of the worst teams in the Big Ten West, there's kind of nothing to be said that isn't an overreaction.
I don't necessarily think they were a fraudulent 5-0, but that's maybe a slightly different discussion. Specifically, the Northwestern game, we all were talking about it. I listened back to what we said last week, and we were all pretty confident that Maryland was going to take that game. But it kind of goes back to what we saw in some of those early games against Charlotte and Virginia, where if Maryland does not start fast, they are not a team that's going to win coming back in a game. We've seen that against Illinois. It's not going to happen. The Ohio State game, I think early on, gave Maryland fans a little bit of hope just because they were up in that game early, played a very strong first half. If Maryland goes down early in the next 4 games, they're going to go 0-4.
Well, I think the biggest problem isn't going down early because they had 2 first-quarter touchdowns. I think the problem is how the offense looks really good at moments, and then it just has its spurts where it does absolutely nothing. Against Ohio State, they didn't score in the final 26 minutes. They didn't score for 20 minutes against Illinois between the second and third quarters. And then after they scored their second touchdown against Northwestern, they would only manage 2 more field goals until the final 3:42 where Jayshon Jones got that touchdown. Like, they need more consistency throughout the game. It just can't be, touchdown, nothing for 20 minutes, touchdown. Like, they need that consistency throughout.
And then Maryland, at the end of the Northwestern game, has a chance to win the game. The defense puts them in a position to win the game. Whether Maryland should have been in that position to begin with isn't really worth talking about, but Maryland has a chance to win that game. And I think good football teams find a way to win that game. They're going to make the catch on the sideline. The throw over the middle is going to be accurate. Bad football teams aren't going to win that game, and I think that's exactly what we saw against Northwestern. That's
such a good point, because every team has a clunker of a game, right? Like, you're not going to play a perfect 12-game season, right? No team does. Even like Georgia from 2022, like, they had bad games. You have to find a way to win. And like, as corny as that sounds, it is true. Like, if Maryland had come away with a sloppy win, but they got a last-second drive, and that catch on the sideline, I think it was Ty Felton makes the catch, or they hit Corey Dyches over the middle. Like, that's stuff where if it ends up happening and Maryland wins, people are still frustrated, right? We're still talking about how they don't look good, all this, but at the end of the day, you're not as worried about the state of the program, which I think says a lot, about college football fans, just because how close points can swing feelings and jobs and all that stuff. But it also says at the end of the day that they're just an undisciplined team, right? You don't have as many penalties as Maryland does. You don't have a lack of a run game as bad as Maryland does. And if you're not necessarily going to compete for Big Ten championships, which they're not even close. And Loxley said as much today. We're recording on Tuesday in his press conference. And that the game is just the tip of the iceberg, right? The past 2 weeks have just been a complete joke, a bleep show. Your assistant head coach gets a DUI. You lose to Northwestern and Illinois. Your offensive coordinator is getting mentioned in a sign stealing scandal, as much as that has. And then now today you have a highly regarded transfer from last year who just leaves the program. So it's obviously things are not going well in College Park. It's on a downturn. I guess my question is, and this is big picture stuff, we can kind of probably get into more as the season winds down, but how much of a jolt would a win over Penn State or Michigan be? Or would that, it's not likely, but does that change how people view this season? Or is it still the same aspect of, okay, we beat one of them, but we still lost to, 3 pretty awful teams?
The issue is those games are now saving the season. If Maryland beats Penn State, that pretty much saves the whole season. Going in to face one of the top 10-ish teams, and Penn State comes into Maryland, they beat one of the top, 10 teams in the country. That's a huge resurgence for the program. Maryland basically in football never beats ranked teams, and basically never beats ranked teams in the top 10. If Maryland can beat Penn State, that's a huge program win. But the sour taste in your mouth from a game like Illinois or Northwestern or Maryland is supposed to win, it's just too much to ask for. So, I would totally turn the way the season is looked at, but overall, just those 2 games are so frustrating.
Mike, I guess then the question I pose to you is, we were talking about them potentially competing for a Big Ten title, and now the question is, do they even make a bowl game? So I guess if it comes down to it, you got Penn State at home, then at Nebraska, who's playing good football now, home versus Michigan, and then at Rutgers, who also is playing good football. What is their record, and do they even make a bowl game?
I do think they make a bowl game. I think they finish 7-5, wins against Nebraska and Rutgers, or I still think it's very likely. As unpredictable as this season has gone, with the highs of the 5-0 start to the lows of the last 3 weeks for them, I still think, as unpredictable as they've been, the craziest thing would be them beating a Michigan or Penn State. Now, to add on to it, I think people need to take a little bit of a step back for a second. If they go, if they finish 7-5 this year, this would be the first time since 2003. That's Ralph Friesen era, 2003, that the program has had a winning season in 3 straight years. So I think people need to have a little bit of a reality check, realize where this program has been before Loxley, and just be grateful that we have a coach in a winning, position right now. Kind of putting the program back where it was Frisian era before they brought in Edsel.
I disagree completely. I get the idea of, yeah, like you got to look at program context, but at the end of the day, you can't talk like you want to compete for Big Ten championships, and you can't pay Loxley the salary he does if you want to be a mediocre Big Ten school. You're not paying Loxley the money that he is, or the type of things that they talk about if you're going to be a Northwestern or an Illinois. Yes, the program, it would be 3 winning seasons of what? Like 7-5, 8-4, and then the year before 7-5. I don't think at the end of the day, you're looking for that. Like that, no fan is jumping for joy with a bowl game appearance in Boca Raton, Florida. You know, like at the end of the day, if you're going to talk in preseason media, like, hey, we're ready to compete for Big Ten championships, we have the talent, you know, you're bringing back top quarterback, one of the top quarterbacks in the Big Ten. You're bringing back probably a first-round draft pick of Jayshon Barnum. Like, you have the pieces. Maryland football isn't delivering. I don't think that just taking the overall picture, yes, I think people need to take a step back, and the calls for Loxley to be fired, like, that's kind of ridiculous. But to say, like, oh, people should just be grateful because of how bad things were, I don't think you can compare the two. Like, should Michigan fans be grateful because, you know, Jim Harbaugh, when he was going 8-4, and because the program was bad under Brady Hoke and them? I know it's not the same apples to apples, but it's the same idea, right? You strive.
I would much rather take this over 2 7-6 seasons and losses in the Military Bowl and Foster Farms Bowl. I'm just going to say that. I'd rather take where the program is now than where it was in the 2010s.
But you have to have an upwards trajectory as a program, though. It seems like they've plateaued, and that's not plateauing. Usually means that you're on the road for decline, and that's where I think people are worried is, when are they going to get better? Talia leaves after this season. Are you going to get a quarterback as good as him here? What has the recruiting been like? It's not like they're pulling in these great classes. I think people were more so like, okay, this is our peak. Like, we should have a good peak. Now it seems like it's like plateauing, and we're on the decline if you're a Maryland fan.
I would actually argue that Maryland has not had a winning season in the past 3 years. Do you want to call these, quote, out-of-conference wins against Towson and Charlotte and Virginia a winning season? I mean, the past 3 years, Maryland has not had a winning record in conference play, and they're going forward with who the Big Ten has brought in, unless something dramatic changes, they're not going to have a winning record in conference play. So to say that team is actually on an upward trajectory with 3, quote, winning seasons with wins against, you know, I don't know, you want to look at 2021 with wins against Howard and Kent State. These games and you know, going to win these Mickey Mouse bowl games where they play Virginia Tech, who didn't start half of their team.
They beat the Mayo Bowl is a solid bowl game to be in.
Absolutely,
That's got to be the best one since the
not
game.
not a legitimate football game, because NC State ranked to win. If that's a ranked win, then I don't know what you were talking about. NC State didn't really play most of their team. Their quarterback didn't really play, and that was just an ugly football game to watch. So to say that there's been a huge, you know, 3 winning seasons with, you got to look at who they beat. And really, a lot of those wins are coming out of conference against teams that are awful.
So then what are they supposed to do? So if this team has peaked and they're about to decline, what do they do? Because what's the solution? Do you fire Loxley? Just like, you know, same treatment as Friedgen, bring in a new guy, and then, you know, it's a gamble. Does that guy's culture pay off the way Loxley rebuilt this program after a tragedy? Like,
I don't think you fire Loxley. I don't think anybody is calling for that. It's more so just discussing the reality that it's a dark couple weeks for the program. Like, and I think that no one is saying, or people should not be saying, like, oh, Loxley needs to go, or things like that. But you have to call a buck one, like, call it 100. Like, let's keep it real. It's not acceptable to lose to Northwestern, Illinois, and I don't think they're going to make a bowl game. I think they lose to Nebraska, and I think they could lose to Rutgers. And that's just, with the roster they have, that is not acceptable. Point blank, period. Like, you can't do that. Not in the season where you're talking at media day, like, oh, we're ready to compete for Big Ten championships. And like
so
Brendan said, and it's a great.
You call it a coaching problem then? If the roster is good and they're not doing the results that they should be?
I don't know. I'm not in the building. Loxley called out the players, so maybe their roster isn't as talented as what they were hyping it up to be. But I mean, I think at the end of the day, it with the amount of money college football coaches make, it falls back on the coaches. And so, I mean, we've talked about it enough. Me and Brendan were on the side of they were good heading into the 5-0, and Mike was on the opposite, and now we flipped. So you never know. But I think we can all agree that this Northwestern loss, I think really just like it tanked the season. No matter they're probably not beating Penn State. We don't have to spend a ton of time on it. And they're not beating Michigan, if I had to guess. And so then it comes down to, are you going to play in some garbage bowl game,
Yeah, with all that being said, the narrative of the season can completely change. If
100%.
Maryland beats Penn State or Michigan, it's an insanely different perspective we're talking about now. I just think that's unlikely. I think the other thing you're talking about, what's the issue, discipline, all that, and you brought it up earlier. Where does that start? I think it partially starts with the quarterback. I think Talia has not been very disciplined in these past 2 games. Instead of putting Maryland in positions to win the game, he puts them in positions to lose the game, and that's why they lost against Illinois Northwestern.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, there's just a ton of problems, and you have to hope if you're Maryland that it all comes together for one game against Penn State. But, I think it just people are happy that we're getting closer to basketball season is where we're at.
So the Penn State line is around 10.5 points, Penn State being favored. I think we can all agree that's ridiculous. So where would you put the line?
Do we all agree on that?
I would say 14.5 Penn State. Mike is feeling Maryland. I don't know. What are your?
I don't know. I'll wait till the future pick segments for us to talk about the line for that game. But
well,
look, I think backs against the wall. Everybody's downing them. They bring out the gold script jerseys. It's a fairy tale in the making.
Well, Mike is feeling an upset bringing College Park. I think me and Brendan are a little less optimistic. And I think fans in College Park are a little less optimistic, but they're excited for basketball season. It's getting closer, 2 weeks away. The men's team just released some pretty sick new jerseys. Quick thoughts on those before we kind of move into the women's side where there's a little more news going on. Brendan, I know you're a big jersey aficionado. What were your thoughts? I have a hot take about them, so I want to hear what you have to say first.
The jerseys are freaking sick. What are they doing playing them, using them in a game over vacation? That makes no sense. Whoever decided that made a bad decision.
I love the retro looks that they've taken this year. However, I got to say the Under Armour block in the middle of the collar for them, it looks terrible. Who designed that? Just put it on the side.
Kevin Blank, baby. My hot take is I think they're the best jersey that any Maryland team wears. And I was going to ask that question really quick. What is your favorite Maryland jersey of any sport?
I just think the red football strip is the best.
Probably basketball Gold Rush. Just because, I don't know. Thinking about it, it was like my first big game at the Xfinity Center. Jameer hits the shot against Illinois. Like, a lot of good memories with those jerseys.
My sleeper is the black soccer ones. Those are tough. I love those jerseys. I think they look really good. But anyway, on to the women's basketball team, who a little bit more news. They played another exhibition game. Definitely a closer match. Mike, what were your big takeaways from that? They went 2-0, and then their season starts next Monday on November 6th against Harvard. Really quick, what did you see in the exhibition games? And then what are you looking forward to come the 6th?
Why it was close? Probably because they were playing a D1 team this time, not a D2 team. But what did I take out of it? I said last week that I think that Shakia Brown-Turner could have an Abby Myers level impact. Past weekend, the game on Sunday kind of reiterated that thought for me. She led the team with 15 points. She was a leading scorer there, had 10 points the first game. She's clearly aggressive, getting comfortable with the squad. She brings over a lot of scoring prowess from NC State. And then the other thing I got to say is Riley Nelson's going to be really, really good by the end of this year. She had over 20 points the first exhibition game, only 8 the second, but you can see Freese is playing her minutes. I believe she played like 18 minutes. she's going to see minutes, more minutes than any freshman in recent history. So very excited to see that. Sam, were you at the game? Did you see anything?
I was not, but I did read a bunch about it. I'm not gonna say like as many takeaways from the preseason just because I wasn't there. But I agree on what you said about Riley. I think she's kind of, as the season progresses, she'll come into her own. And I'm just ready for the season. We talked about it all last week. I don't really have much to say. I'm just excited to see how this kind of new group forms. And I think it's going to be kind of a roller coaster year, but I think that they'll be in the hunt, which is exciting to watch.
Yeah.
Here, kind of get some games going.
They kind of build off that roller coaster a little bit. I definitely think that this team is going to start slow. New faces are going to be new roles for everybody. It's not going to be perfect as first. I'd expect Harvard to be closer than people think. I still think they'll come away with it. But first game of the season, new rotations and everything. Sam, do you agree?
Yeah, I think it'll be a close game. I tend to think that Harvard might give them some trouble early on, and they'll kind of cruise out. But I'm excited. And one thing I can guarantee is that they are not going to finish last in the Big Ten. But I can't say that about the men's soccer team. 6-2 record. Brendan, what can you even say?
Ugly. Pretty darn ugly. Not a season turnaround for men's soccer. They were competitive in a ton of games, but they just really couldn't win. All their wins this year came at home. For a team that started ranked and Big Ten favorites, it's a major disappointment. They beat a top 10 team early in the season, beat UNC Greensboro. They're also now unranked. Like, very odd season. The Georgetown game, which is usually one of the biggest games of the season, lightning canceled. Season's over for men's soccer, but it was very weird, Sam. I agree, but time to rethink and get back to it.
Yeah, got some young players, which is going to be kind of, I think, a future for the program. Definitely, one thing you can say is they developed some young guys that I think will have pretty good futures here in College Park. So that's, I guess, the only positive you can really take away from the season for the men's soccer boys. But they will not be participating in the Big Ten tournament, which leaves one team left, because women's soccer is not either, that'll be in the Big Ten conference tournament, and that's the field hockey team. Mike, they lost to Northwestern in kind of a reality check almost for where they kind of stand in the national rankings, but still overall a good season. And now they get to play number 6 ranked Iowa on Thursday. What are you expecting from that game, and kind of take us through where you think Maharg's squad is at this point of the year?
Right, so they lost to Northwestern, the number one team in the nation, last week. That puts their conference record at 6-2. They finished third in the Big Ten, and now looking forward to Thursday's game against Iowa. They faced Iowa just a couple weeks ago, a little under 2 weeks ago in College Park. They beat them 4-1. I think it's going to be a lot closer this week. It's going to be a lot more familiarity between the two sides, especially since they played so recently. Iowa is on a little bit of a cold streak. They've dropped 3 of their last 6 games, all to ranked teams. You already know that Maryland's ranked. Meanwhile, Maryland was on a 7-game winning streak before dropping the finale against Northwestern, like you said. So Maryland just kind of needs to do what they did the last time to Iowa, and that's get the offense scoring quickly. They scored 2 goals against them in the first quarter the last time. When they don't get off to a good offensive start, that's when they begin to falter, just like that game against Northwestern last week. They were already down 3-0 in the second quarter when they got their first goal, and they didn't even attempt a shot in the first.
Yeah, I mean, they gotta figure it out, bounce back, which I think they will. So, be a fun game to watch. I'll definitely be tuning in on Thursday, kind of see where they're at. Maybe they'll get a rematch with Northwestern in the finals.
That would be the nightmare for them. They lost to Northwestern last year in the Big Ten tournament, and then in the Final Four, they do not want to face Northwestern. That's the one team on Maharg's list. She's like, I do not want to play them.
I'm tired of the Wildcats. Every Maryland team is. Football, field hockey. Shit, the bowling team's probably going to lose to Northwestern next week. So they get Iowa on Thursday. Definitely will be a fun one to tune into. And they kind of have their little stretch run that is coming down to the end here, and so does volleyball. Our next team and final team of fall sports that we're going to be talking about. Nebraska cooked them. They then cooked Iowa. So that leaves a trip to Michigan to play both the Michigan teams. They pretty much got to win both of these, Brendan. What are the chances of that? And then do you think that puts them in the Big Ten tournament and a chance to, or and the NCAA tournament and a chance to compete? Or is that kind of unlikely, you think, that they go 2-0 in Ann Arbor and Eastland?
We talked about it a couple weeks ago, what record I think Maryland would need to have to make the NCAA tournament. I think it's really unlikely. The thing that hurts them is that the Big Ten does not sponsor a women's volleyball tournament. So they play a lot of in-season games, but an automatic way to get it in most sports would be to win that tournament. Volleyball doesn't have that. Going to play Michigan State this weekend. Michigan State is 6-6. Michigan is 2-10. Both very winnable games, but because they're on the road, I'm going to predict another 1-1 weekend with a loss to Michigan State. That'll win against Michigan. Just to put it in perspective right now, there's a lot of rankings, but one of the good rankings to go by is just the RPI ranking. So Maryland's 92nd, Michigan State is 82nd, and Michigan is 187th. So Maryland with a good chance to win one of those games, but with Maryland being so far back in those rankings and also just kind of buried in the Big Ten standings, they would need a huge turnaround. They're in the middle of the Big Ten standings, near the bottom, but it would be really tough for them to make the NCAA tournament. But as many games they can win in play and also as many games as they can get, maybe steal against ranked teams, just helps continue to build momentum for this program. And I don't think an NCAA bid is in the cards for this year. But hey, 64 teams make it. They have to climb a good bit, but it's not completely out of the question. But I would call it unlikely.
So I was looking at the schedule earlier. They have 8 games left, 3 against currently ranked opponents. If they go 10-10 in conference play, what does that put their record at? Is that not good enough to?
I don't think it's
put
good
them
enough.
In. No,
I don't think it's good enough. They only had a couple of losses outside of conference play, but it's hard to give a valid bid for the Big Ten tournament when didn't really beat that many great Big Ten teams, or for the NCAA tournament. But yeah, I don't think it's gonna happen.
Yeah, I think they'd have to knock off one of those ranked teams and then go 2-0. I think the Michigan State game's kind of key. If they lose that,
if they take care of business against every non-ranked team and win 1 or 2 ranked games, maybe it's a different story. But I don't think. I think it's unlikely, but I think the program is in the right direction. So,
yeah, still clearly, I think you can say this season was a relative success.
And at least they win conference games, unlike soccer.
Yeah, right, exactly. At least you can say that they won some Big Ten games, and that's kind of where we're at with the fall sports teams. Not usually the most rosy outlook here in College Park, but that's it for fall sports.
I'll tell you, somebody who hasn't been winning games is me in the picks.
What about the Big Mike special?
Yeah, the Big Mike parlay last week went 0-3.
Nice.
A little, yeah, it's a free fall. A little update on the standings right now. Sam, top of the leaderboard, 15-12, got the record right this week. Brendan right below him, 12-14 in that pesky tie, and then me 10-17. So again,
really
a reigning champ.
That's bad. That's really bad, Mike, by the way.
I get it. Yeah, it's not really pesky anymore. You kind of just are like, Brendan's kind of clearing you pretty easily.
No.
I started terrible, but who knows?
I don't know. There's some weird chemicals in the water here in College Park. Does our reigning champ have to go first?
I actually think I've been going first a little too much lately.
All right. I'll go first.
Go first. Yeah, we'll give you the floor. Maybe it'll switch up the mojo a little.
Okay. I've been going a lot of betting trends and statistics recently. I'm dropping all that. Forget it. I'm just looking at the line, saying if I like it or not. We're going to start with USC +4. I think it's a redemption game for them. They almost lost to California. They lost to Utah. I don't care. I think they're going to take down Washington. I don't think Washington goes undefeated. Next, Alabama -3 against LSU. LSU is just not that good under Brian Kelly. I don't think they'll ever be as good as they were under Coach O. That's a tough loss for them. And then Army Air Force under 31.5. It's a service academy game.
Good pick. That the first two, I think you're going 0-2 on, but I think I could see the last one hitting. Do not take gambling advice from Michael House, though.
I didn't check the Big Mike parlay odds for this week, but again, you can go on DraftKings, FanDuel, whatever you use, plug that in there with some money.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Really do not do that. Not with the way his record. The record speaks for itself. We'll go to our second place person in the standings, B Wizzle.
This might be my most ridiculous week of picks yet. I'll add a little bit in there, Mike. Just on Washington, I almost watched Washington lose to Stanford this weekend. So I get where you're coming from there, where they maybe they're frauds.
Stanford as a football team?
I don't know. I think they do.
They practice in the library.
Yeah, good one. Okay, very odd week of picks. I took two unders. I'm taking the Iowa Northwestern under 31, which is very low. And then I'm taking the Washington USC under 76.5. So two unders that are on completely different sides of the universe. And then
one of them.
Hopefully one of them will hit. Who knows? And then for probably my most confident pick ever, I'm taking Maryland plus 10 against Penn State. Why does that make any sense? It makes no sense. That line couldn't make less sense. Okay? Vegas knows something I don't. They're putting the line at 10 points. Have they watched the last Maryland games? I don't know. Maybe something's in the gold jerseys. I don't think that's going to happen, but because it's so ridiculous, they know something I don't. I took it.
Vegas always knows, man. I'm just going to give you my pick straight up. Minnesota minus two, Houston plus 4, and then the LSU Alabama over. I've been on a winning way, and I really I kind of need someone to catch up. I'm like cruising a little bit here. I need Brendan to get it going to really have like a 3-0 week. So we have some comp in the standings, because right now it's just kind of a coast to the final. But that was our pick segment for the week. You can see the graphic on Saturday, or Friday or Saturday, that we'll release, which will have all of our picks outlined. And that'll be on the Under the Shell social medias. So will Terrific Terp. And we're gonna turn away to Brendan for this week's, which the past two have been pretty awesome. So take it away, B.
All right, let's do it. Eden Kroger-Brooks is one of the all-time greats in Maryland volleyball history. So great that she is the only person in Maryland volleyball program history to make her way into the Maryland Athletics Hall of Fame. Brooks came to Maryland from Colorado, and her recruitment for volleyball was helped by the strong Quest engineering program at the University of Maryland. She played in College Park from 1994 to 1997, where she led the team to 3 straight NCAA second-round appearances in her sophomore, junior, and senior years. She also led the team to their first ever back-to-back NCAA tournament appearances, and was a part of 3 of the 7 total appearances to date. The success didn't just come in the NCAA tournament, as Brooks was co-captain of the 1996 and 97 teams that went undefeated in ACC play and led to a 1996 ACC championship. In 1997, Brooks was the ACC Player of the Year and earned first-team All-ACC 2 times in her career. Brooks is the all-time leader in Maryland history with 5,259 career assists. That record seems safe as of now, as the next closest person is over 1,000 assists away. Brooks led the team in assists every individual season she was on campus. That's all for this week's Terrific Terp.
Another great Terrific Terp. And like you said, the last 2 weeks have been bangers. If it takes the Maryland football team to not be good for these Terrific Terps to keep being outstanding, I'm going to take it. Like, I'll take that any given week.
Thank you, Mike.
I'm taking that trade every time. But you can continue to listen to all of our rants on Maryland sports, especially Maryland fall sports recently, at Under the Shell on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Find us on social media at Under the Shell, and keep listening, keep following along on the socials, and we appreciate all of you. Have fun at the game. To anyone who's going on Saturday, I think it should be good fall weather. So maybe Brendan's line will hit, and College Park will be rejoiced. So that's it for episode of Under the Shell presented by Testudo Times. Have a good rest of your night.
Guess what? You got Under the Shell podcast. Nobody does it better.